Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of the Next Issue Live. Luckily for us, the holiday kind of allowed us to do this because if you're watching this and you don't know what's going on, unfortunately, over the weekend we lost Peter David, comic writer, for a whole lot. We'll go through a lot of his work. And the guys we were talking, like, we got to talk about Peter David, right? Like, that was just our conversation in the chat. I was like, well, it's Memorial Day, nobody's going to work, so like let's have a little stream to talk a little bit about Peter David, remember his work. Um, I think that he had a lot of contributions, and we'll go through some of that stuff. And I'll let the guys talk about maybe personal experiences. I know Clay's met him. I don't know if Jeff, did you ever get to meet Peter David at any convention?
No. I'm not a big go out and meet your people person.
Never meet your heroes type of guy.
Never. I'm a never meet your heroes kind of guy. I like looking at them from afar and then just being like, okay, that's good enough for me.
All right. Well, just some real quick highlights for him, and then we'll get into it. So Peter David was actually he was a journalist and he worked in PR. That's when he kind of moved over to Marvel's sales department, which is kind of what gave him his into the comic industry. So a lot of comic writers and comic creators overall tell you, like, you never know how you're gonna get in there, right?
Yeah.
It's just really about getting your foot in the door. Some of his more memorable works is his Incredible Hulk run, which was like from 87 to 98, like
So huge.
long. So many different contributions, including like the Gray Hulk, the Professor Hulk, like just almost any iteration of the Hulk that you've seen in the
Mr.
films
Fix-It.
and stuff like that. Yeah, it probably comes
Mr.
from
Fix-It.
that. Also, going to work for the government for X Factor, like the big run from 2005 to like almost 2013. There were several iterations of that comic, which I'll talk about in a second too, because the latter part of that is when I got into comics.
My X Factor collection run is,
there's so
just
much.
all hardback, great reads.
And then, of course, one of my favorites, Spider-Man 2099. He co-created Miguel O'Hara, which was like, he's on the screen. He's got a movie coming out soon, right?
It's amazing how much stuff he contributed that's on film, and he really didn't earn the money he should have for the work that has been put into film and television production.
Yeah, and then also some other stuff like Jen Isbell, the Captain Marvel character. He also had a run on She-Hulk. And most recently, I think he did a symbiote Spider-Man book at Marvel. Like I believe that was one of his latest books.
Yeah.
What I was a little surprised that he worked on some DC characters as well. Aquaman.
Didn't he Aquaman his hook?
Yeah, he's the one that reimagined Aquaman to the one that we know from the Justice League series with the more darker, grittier kind of background and the hook hand. Also, Supergirl for a long time, really just a lot of the lore that from Supergirl that we'll also probably see in part of that in the upcoming film. Like I'm sure Tom King was inspired by some of that stuff. And then over at IDW, the series Fallen Angel, which is kind of like people call it a spiritual successor to Supergirl, which is the character. I haven't read it, but I looked into the character a little bit. It does feel like very Supergirl coded, that Fallen Angel character.
So his Supergirl run is the Supergirl that has the angel that is Supergirl, but not actually Kara Zor-El.
Right, okay. Which I think we talked. You brought that up a few shows ago, right, Jeff?
Yeah. I couldn't remember who did it, but I was like, oh, okay.
David.
He also did Young Justice in DC, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that and those are the two big DC books I have of his, because his run on Supergirl was this incredible take that she was like a god, and it was just and the worship that comes around it. And his Young Justice book is so funny and fun, and I believe Todd Knock is the artist on it, and it's one of those perfect matches.
Yes, I think, Jeff, did you show us some Young Justice issues the other day? Is that how that came up? I think we bought some the day we went shopping.
Yeah, I bought some at the shop when we went to that shop the other day. I don't know if I still have them close by me, but I collected that Young Justice run as it was coming out pretty much entirely. I don't remember how long I got into it.
Also, greatly inspired the show, like the animated show.
Yeah,
Looking through
definitely.
his credits, because I do have, and I'm looking through his stuff outside of comics. He did some novels for Star Trek, and then some original work called, like, the Hidden Earth series. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. I imagine it feels like some kind of sci-fi type of stuff. And then also worked on, like, TV shows, including Young Justice, Ben 10, and then some video game stuff like the Babylon 5 tie-in games and stuff like that. So, I mean, he was a prolific writer in a lot of the mediums, but I felt like obviously his biggest contribution was always comic books. Like, that's kind of his forte. So, Clay, I'm gonna throw it back to you because I feel like you probably met him before everyone else, right?
I did, and
I was asking Clay, like, hey, do you have any pictures of maybe when you met him? He's like, this was the 80s, man. Like, this is
yeah, I didn't have a phone, so like when
He has a daguerreotype of him.
Yeah.
I pulled my own Dallas Fantasy Fair badges from the 80s that I had.
Oh wow!
Yeah, sorry, they're reflecting, but like
Oh,
this
cool.
was like 84, 85, and 86 when he was a manager at Marvel, or sales manager, and he was part of the direct market that would work directly with the comic book stores that were popping up everywhere as the direct market started to build. And so my mom would just go drop me off at the Dallas hotel where the Dallas Fantasy Fair was going on, and I would just have free reign for the day. And so I would go to these panels, and Peter David was hosting one about the FF, because they were about to make bold new changes to Sue Storm. And so we were like, let's go there, because John Byrne had been doing FF.
They're gonna make her visible.
Well, it was just, he was great at what he did, because he does this panel. He's pitching all the Marvel stuff. He's talking about everything that's coming. And the panel started to go long, and he goes, if you guys want to go out in the hall. And we went out, and we found a little place to sit. He sat, and there was probably 20 of us just sitting around listening to him talk, and really just sell us on Marvel stuff. Yeah. And so, like, I'm a 13-year-old kid, and I'm like, raising my hand, asking questions, because I'm just like, there's not that many of us. I can, get in with him. Treated me like an adult, like looked me in the eye, answered my questions, and was just a gentleman. And it had stuck with me since then, because I just remember this guy who was in sales, but apparently went on to run the Hulk for 15 years. One of my favorite runs of the Hulk. He the X Factor. And it was great, because he's talking about Sue Storm and this big change that's coming. And the big change was they changed her name from Invisible Girl to Invisible Woman. But he had us on the edge of our seats going, what's happening to Sue? And just, he was just the nicest guy I can remember, because like I have since the 80s had so many interactions with different people that I've respected as writers and artists and people that worked in the comic book industry. But as a 13-year-old kid, to have, someone sit there and just treat you like an adult and, really interact with you, it was just, it was just one of the best times I ever had as a fan. And Peter David's work has just kind of stuck with me ever since.
Do you remember if you might have followed up on, like, maybe you later up and they go in a shop and you're like, oh, this is where they finally changed it or whatever, like on that.
Oh, no. I just was a nerdy kid that kind of kept to myself. I was surprised I even asked a question, but Peter David created that kind of place where you felt comfortable to talk, and most of the time the comic shops I'd go to, I just kind of just pick up my stuff and leave. I would just kind of keep to myself.
That's a cool thing about comics. I feel like it will, like, because of the passion that you feel for it, you'll do things like maybe step up and ask a question, or like, I don't know, it helps you kind of like push the boundaries of like what you just wouldn't normally maybe not ever do, because like, I don't know, you're a shy kid or whatever, or like you don't like public speaking, like all those different things. So
but with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to ask that question.
Exactly, because you're excited about comics. The before the internet, to have any kind of comic book talk or engagement, you had very few formats, and one of them was the Comic Spires Guide. And Peter David used to write an article for it. It was collected in a book called But I Digress. And so you can go back and read a lot of the commentary that he did about these back in the day. And it's great on just because, like, he is such a passionate writer, and he really he was at odds with different artists. He'd be at odds with Todd McFarlane. They used to have like conventions where they would debate art versus writing, you know, but it was done in fun, and it helped, you know, comics, you know. He was at odds with John Byrne, but like how much of an enemy can it be when John Byrne provides an image for the back of your book, where I hate that there's such a glare, where he's just shredding Peter David's work. I mean, and Peter David takes it all in fun and puts it on the back of his book.
That's pretty good.
But if you can grab a hold of this is a great, I would say, historic document about his commentary through the Comic Spires Guide back in the 80s and 90s. Just pre-internet, before everyone had a voice to talk about it, and his commentary on writing and what it means to comics versus art is just a great debate. You know, we still talk about art and you know, and just the key balance of those in comics. He's going to be missed. He wrote so much stuff that if you're even just new to Marvel and you've just seen the movies, you've seen his stories on film. You've seen the stuff that he's done in comics be adapted to film. And anytime I was looking for a Star Trek book, I would look for a Peter David book because I knew it was going to be good and it was going to be funny and have heart. That's just the stuff he wrote. Yeah,
for sure. Jeff, how about you? What's your Peter David corner of the comics world?
First off, I want to say that's a crazy Clay story. I have almost, it's not a Peter David story, but I remember his story jogged a memory of me going to some convention out in Plano when I was a kid, and the Image guys had just been brought back to Marvel to do all the Heroes Reborn stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I was talking to some guy that worked for Rob Liefeld, and I was asking him a question about the redesign of the A and turning it on Cap's costume, on Captain America's costume, from the A to the Eagle that they switched up. And that guy had zero interest in talking to Kid Me. Like, whoever it was, I don't remember who it wasn't, somebody famous or anything. He was just like some dude from Image. But he was just like, I don't remember the question, but that guy had zero time for me. Like, he just was like, yeah, we're doing it. And then he, and I'm just like, oh, what a great story that you have, Clay, that of somebody who's just like, yeah, let's talk. And then the thing ends and he's like, I still got time for you guys. Let's go somewhere else. And whereas, as opposed to like, you know, and it's the 90s by this point, and you know, I'm sure all the Image guys were all, you know, making money hands over fist, so they didn't care about that kind of stuff anyway.
Right.
Peter David,
cool.
Yeah. They were too cool. They were too cool for school. Peter David. So Peter David, I never met him, but he was like, when you first start reading comics and you start getting a layout of like, not just the land of like what comics are, but like who the creators are and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Peter David was one of those writers that jumped out to me first. And so like him and like Jeff Loeb and Mark Waid and Straczynski, like all kind of started floating up to the top in that kind of late 80s, early 90s stuff. Cause I was like, oh, these writers know how to write. Like, and back then you talk about the Todd, Peter David, what's better, writing or artists. There was a big divide back then because the artwork was very stylized back then. It is still today, but like I think it's all that kind of talk is mellowed out, where it's people have been like it's the whole thing. But back then there was very much a division between writer versus artist. What sold the comics? What do you go in for, kind of thing. And early on, I was just like, oh, these are the writers I need to be paying attention to. Peter David was one of those ones where I was like, every comic I picked up. I read so I read a couple of his Hulk issues, and I'm not a big Hulk person. Like I enjoy runs of Hulks, but like his is one of the ones that I would like pick up on occasion. I didn't get any of the
I mean, it
McFarlane
was
stuff.
so long you were just bound to run into
Yeah,
it. I
yeah,
think.
exactly. Yeah, but I really enjoyed his stuff with Dale Keown,
Oh,
yeah, all that stuff where Rick Jones gets married and stuff. Like I was reading that monthly. His X Factor stuff, like I dove into that stuff. I of course read all of Young Justice pretty much. And then he did Spy Boy, I think, for IDW. Spy, I don't remember who
yeah.
published it. Maybe it's Oni or somebody. But I read all of Spy Boy. I love Spy Boy. Spy Boy is fantastic. Um, yeah, yeah. So I collected a bunch of Peter David stuff back in the day.
It's a Dark Horse book.
Dark Horse. Thank you.
Well, I got into really reading comics full time, like around 2011, 2012, when they were doing all those like New 52, Marvel Now, like relaunches. And one of the first books that I kind of got into, and this is the one I'll always remember Peter David for. It was his X Factor, but it was the all new X Factor where they were like a corporate entity
Yes.
by like Servo Industries. This one here, and I love this roster of X Factor. So you have Lorna, right? You have Gambit, you have Pietro, Scarlet Witch joins later on. You have Cypher, who's like one of my favorite X-Men. You have Danger when she became corporeal, like when the Danger Room became corporeal and it became an entity. And then Warlock joins later on as well, which like I love Cypher and Warlock. So like this team, and then also them working for a company. I was like, whoa, they can do that. Like like a company can have a team. That's so cool. So and then those Chris Anka covers, like I mean, uh, there's one where where Gambit's holding a bunch of cats because for like I don't remember exactly why, but they had a bunch of cats. But I was like, this comic is so cool, and it only ran for like 20 issues, but I mean, I was fully hooked. And this is what I think of later, like 2014. So in I went digging through Facebook because I knew I had met him before, and I remember I uploaded a bunch of I would always upload my pictures to an album. So in 2019, I think it was at the North Texas show when it was a little bigger that they did it in the bottom floor of the Irving Convention Center instead of the DoubleTree Hotel. Like when it moved up to the bigger stage right before it got canceled. I'm pretty sure this is it. So I met Peter David, and I got him to sign
Ah,
my Hulk book. This is like a Hulk anniversary issue, and then my Spider-Man 2099 #1, which I still have hung up. That one's hanging in my room. I have a wall of comics that are just taped to the wall. And yeah, like listening to his panel. Yo, you're muted, Jeff.
Sorry, I keep muting myself because I'm sick. But like, I just imagine you just straight up taping them to the wall, no protection or anything.
Yeah, well, no, those
Just straight
they
up
are in bags and
packaging
boards.
tape straight across.
No, they are in bags and boards because the ones I tape are some of my favorite like covers and stuff, like things I've got signed. So I do want to, I want to protect those, but yeah, and like, just listening to him at the panel, and he would tell funny stories about like working in the bullpen and like little feuds and stuff like that. But yeah, it was always very, very lighthearted, and every time that he would come back with a Spider-Man 2099 stories, because the thing I like about his Spidey 2099 and the more contemporary one I started reading was that it was always Miguel coming back to the present as opposed to him being in the future. As much as I love 2099, sometimes I don't like the stories that are set in 2099. Like I want to see those characters out of time. Um, so that was very cool. I mean, Miguel O'Hara looks so cool as well. So yeah, those are the big things. And then I've I've now gone back and read the Maestro saga, the original one, but it all started because Marvel was doing those when they did their big Streaker Wars thing, they
yeah,
had those battle worlds and
yeah.
they relaunch and they're like I remember the teases of like Civil War is coming back and like all these big events. And no one of those is Future Imperfect, which is the story of Maestro, right? Which is that Hulk that eventually like ages into like this I don't know, like almost looks like a King Conan Hulk of like he just took over the world.
Future Imperfect's before Old Man Logan, right? Like
I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
I bet those were like, oh, what if we just speed up the timeline all the way to the future? You know, like with characters that would make sense that they would still be alive because they don't age or they can't die or whatever. So I
Yeah,
think
that was 92.
Yeah.
Oh wow, was that early? Okay, wow.
Dang. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I like, and anytime I would see Peter
Danny
David,
was -8.
Yeah. 92? No, I was running, kicking. I couldn't read then yet though. I don't think. No, I'm pretty sure. No, hold on. 6. Can you read it 6? I don't think you
carry
can.
the one.
I don't know if you can read it
by
6 years old. I don't think I was.
You're probably not reading comics, but you're reading like.
If anything, I would be reading comics because they got pictures and I don't need to read.
You definitely be reading Peter David by 6.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean,
we're gonna start you off with Watchmen. If I had a kid at 6 o'clock, boom, at 6 age 6, here's Watchmen. Here you go.
Rorschach makes me sad.
You can't leave the room until you tell me what Watchmen's all about.
Make sure you read that part about the boat. It's important.
Don't skip the Black Freighter stories.
I know you're gonna want to. They look boring, but they're important later.
It's all thematically connected to the larger story. Get ready because we're watching the ultimate cut once you're done.
Oh my god,
that kid will be.
And then Killing Joke is next.
That's right. My dad made me watch a pirate movie where Gerard Butler voices the main guy. Anyways, but yeah, I mean that's kind of the Peter David. I think he also did that. Do you guys remember that Deadpool Art of War book where they just kind of inserted him into like works of art? Like Deadpool will be.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, here, let me see if I can pull up a picture. Which I was like, I didn't remember that because I was going through his comics on League. Luckily, League of Comics has a really nice, easy way to find everything because that's another thing. You can't find comic information in the internet anymore. But this one, where like they just kind of put Deadpool in different works of art.
Yes,
but they call it Art of War. I thought this was a really, really fun series. Here's all the other. Oh, whoops! Hold on. I mean, here. Yeah, see, like I don't know. I thought these were really fun.
that is probably the best of them.
That's just fun. Like that's just really fun stuff. But any other Peter David series that stand out to you guys or anything?
I mean, for me as a Marvel guy, if I can recommend anyone who hasn't read Peter David, it's going to be the Supergirl, Young Justice stuff, because I was surprised how much of that I had, but I remember how good it was. I mean, it was just a different take on Supergirl, and Young Justice was just so funny. Like, I mean, there's like, he was at the time he did that, he was parodying Image's books. And so like, there's a villain in there who she's constantly falling over because her boobs are so big. And he's just mocking them about the way they draw. And so she's just constantly on the ground. I mean, he does some great satire. There's a lot of stuff that I think once a lot of people go back and reread, they're going to really appreciate him 10 times more. The Hulk stuff, I mean, that's a 15-year run. To me, you know, the Todd McFarlane stuff stands out because, you know, those two working together on Hulk and the iconic stuff. I mean, he did the iconic image of Hulk and Wolverine's claws that we saw in the Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Yeah.
Man, you know, as for all the Marvel stuff, like I'm going to recommend a lot of the DC stuff. That just is really great. And I went back and reread, you know, like some of his history because I wasn't familiar with where he started. He sold The Death of Jean DeWolf as his first story to Marvel. Like that was amazing. Like that's his first story, is this big crime story, this 4-issue arc. And then Jim Shooter was like, get him off that. Like, so Bob Harris puts him on the Hulk and he does 15 years. I mean, the dude just takes, nobody wanted to do Hulk at the time. And the guy makes it like this iconic run. He gives Bruce Banner the backstory of possibly, you know, like he was an abused child and creates Maestro and Mr. Fix-It and just
Is that where Ang Lee got the dogs in the movie?
Yeah.
I don't know if the dogs are created, but
because that one was the first. The Ang Lee movie is the one that his dad really treated him kind of like crap, right?
yeah.
I'm just going through here on
He
Late
did
Heroes.
he did the because I'm looking at which Peter David comics I own thus far as I'm scanning my comics into the CLZ. He did Heroes Reborn, The Return, that 4-issue miniseries from Marvel where they brought back all those heroes from their little pocket dimension. I gotta say so just him writing that makes me think he's definitely he's what do they call it, like a utility worker. Like you can throw anything at him and he will be able to write it.
He's a 5 tool writer.
Yeah. He can write pretty much any character, and he's also got kind of one of those. There are those writers that I think not quite to the level of like Jeff Loeb or whoever that can just pull stuff that have like these deep extensive knowledge of like these characters' pasts and stuff. But he's one of those ones that can definitely pull some stuff out from the back that from the old stories and update them and kind of like make reference to them and stuff. Like the guy knows his stuff. Like he knew his stuff.
He's one of the writers. Like I think him and I feel like I put Greg Pak in the same category where like I just see his name on a title and I'm like, how did you get on this character? Or like, like what are you doing on this one? Like this is but then you read it and it's good. Like because they just understand character writing and like how it should sound. Charles Soule, I think the same, but he's more like now all into the Star Wars stuff. But before I was like, he was writing Inhumans and I was like, how did you get this gig? Like nobody likes Inhumans.
Nobody likes the Inhumans.
But it was fun, right? So like Peter David, the same thing. Like I don't really like the Ben Reilly Spider-Man, but I knew he was writing a series on him.
I just looked that up and I'm like, I know Kyle loves Scarlet Spider, and that was one of the runs that I read too, because I was like, what is this story and who's this character? And it was just another fun book, like he makes comics fun and interesting and you want to keep reading his stuff.
He would always have a tie-in series in those big events in Marvel, like in the 2010s. Like there was always going to be a mini series by Peter David with like some kind of side shenanigans, just because they knew that he would be able to crank something out and it'd be fun. And even if it didn't have anything to do with the main thing. So
yeah, I've never been a Babylon 5 guy, but knowing J. Michael Straczynski wrote the TV show and that Peter David did adaptations of it for books, I'm like going, how I probably am missing out on some of the greatest sci-fi from back in the day, because those two are immensely talented.
Yeah. So and that's a show that has a big cult following too, so I'm sure it is pretty good. I've never seen it either, so
I think I might go back and reread that first series of the X Factor I was talking about earlier. Oh, also he did a bunch of Angel in like the season 12 or season 6, I think they call the books, because like after the show ended.
Yeah. Dark Horse books.
Yeah, those are cool.
I don't to ever go like I want to be a writer and maybe just publish a book or a comic is amazing, but to look at the history of his stuff and how much output he had, I just can't fathom the idea that this dude didn't write every single day of his life, because there's just so much stuff that he's done. I mean, books, comics, commentaries, everything he's done is decades, and it's just so much.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, very prolific. I'm just kind of in awe. Like I said, I kind of pitched the idea to these guys, like, hey, let's do something. So we didn't really have time to fully dive deep into it. But man, like it just makes me want to go back and reread some of the stuff I've already read and just check out some of the other stuff that I haven't read.
I'm reading he helped Stan Lee with his autobiography. He helped James Doohan with his autobiography.
That's cool. Like, oh man, that's interesting.
Oh.
All right. Do you guys have any other things we want to talk about Peter David before we get out of here and let everybody else enjoy the rest of your day? This nice day we're gonna have.
he'll be missed. I feel like, is if you were to have a Mount Rushmore, he would definitely be one of those four. He's done so
See,
much.
I was thinking this the other day, and I was like, "That's a tough mountain to."
Yeah, it's a tough four because you want to go. Well, you got Stanley and Jack Kirby. Who are the other two? I mean, just so much content, so much and great content, not just content, but like I shouldn't even call it content. So much entertainment.
So much second.
I went. So my four. I know I'm. This is not Peter David related at all. Yeah, but Kirby, Lee, I think Bill Finger, and so then, but then I'm just like, but then you only have one person left. Who's the? I feel like Julie Schwartz. I don't know. Like it's got to be somebody like.
You guys are pitching a whole different show here, and I like because I like the idea of trying to understand. And this is we're gone way off the rails, but we'll bring it back to Peter David in a second.
Yeah, sorry, Peter.
I want to understand why
but he would love this conversation too. I think
I bet he'd pitch in. Yeah. I want to look into like, okay, why did the artists who carved those the Mount Rushmore pick those specific people? Like, what was the thinking behind that? And then try to apply a similar thinking. Like, it's not like just the fourth best presidents, right? I don't think that's exactly what it is.
So I've looked this up. There's supposed to be 6 altogether.
Big nerd, thank you.
There's supposed to be 6. So they ran out of money, is why it stops at 4.
They ran out of money for art? What?
They ran out of money for art. So there's the mountain that they carved into is this sacred Native American mountain place. They shouldn't have been carving anything into these mountains to begin with, because they had natural.
Especially a bunch of white people.
Yeah, they had natural kind of front facing where they were called like the 6 grandfathers or something like that. And then somebody comes along and is like, well, let's just turn them into presidents. These 6 little kind of faces. They get 4 into it and then they run out of money. The last 2 were supposed to be one was supposed to be like a Native American chief, I think.
Okay.
And so they skipped out on the ones that were like not the white guys.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say they ran out of money for the people who actually lived here.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one was supposed to be some kind of fictional spirit of the West kind of character. Okay. I forget what it was, like a Paul Bunyan or something like that. But yeah, they ran out of money. So 6 were supposed to be. It was supposed to be originally 6 faces carved into the mountain.
But when we do our show, 4. We'll do the real Mount Rushmore and pick 6.
Yeah, we'll pick 6,
which gives us more leeway.
That's right.
And maybe Peter David will make it onto our Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a tough one.
I will argue hard. I will come at you with hard facts.
I mean, just in the amount of work, like if we're just going by amount of comics written, you can probably make a very good argument for Peter David. Right, right behind like Lee and like everybody that wrote. It's tough because like Joel Schuster and Simon, they wrote a lot of Superman and
Siegel and Schuster should probably be up there because they Superman is the first
superhero. Maybe we'll do little tag teams to get more people in there.
Yeah.
But okay,
a blended face.
Yeah, right.
Lee and Kirby are one.
Yeah, I feel like that almost has to be one. But then you have to take out Kirby for his DC work and New Gods and just the universes he created there.
And where do you put Ditko?
Where do you put Ditko? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Kirby's the one that has a bunch of like little faces.
Carmine Infantino. Like
Kurt Swan. I mean, his
Swan.
His Superman look was iconic for so long.
We might need to break it up into like Golden Age, Silver Age, Modern Era, because otherwise
there could be a DC mountain, a Marvel mountain.
Yeah, we'll see. We can get many shows out of this, and then have the internet yell at us because like you excluded my favorite writer.
Yeah.
Oh, then writer versus artist, like should they be separate? Like, are we gonna have that conversation? Peter David sure would have had that conversation. We would have, yeah. We know he was fighting with Todd about it, so.
Oh man!
All right. Well, it sucks that we have to do this type of show, but remembering the good work, remembering all the stuff that these creators have brought to us in comics, that their work will live forever. If you're watching this on demand, I'm gonna look for the link to. There's a GoFundMe for his wife. because unfortunately she's still under a mountain of medical debt. Even so, even though Peter David has passed, his debt apparently has to stick around. So, but that's a whole other
Fucking
conversation for
America.
a whole other show, maybe a whole different channel. I don't know. But yeah, if you can contribute in any way, do that. I think the Heroes Initiative also is doing some. Heroes Initiative is usually my first pitch because I know I trust them. They like just after all the work they've done, I trust them. And they are pretty well verified and recommended. We've seen what they actually do. So I'll put all those links in the
Is
comments.
there
Everybody watch
is
them.
there a work that you would like to see? So like when George Perez passed, they republished the GLA Avengers thing
Oh
as kind of a fundraiser to kind of help
yeah,
with some of his family stuff. Is there a Peter David work you would like to see them? I mean, Future Imperfect's pretty good. Like,
I think
Yeah,
Future
that's
Perfect, it's good and it's kind of poignant to like the world and just like
yeah.
not that well. I was gonna say
yeah.
not that there's a big green dictator, but
He's maybe orange, but
anyways, yeah, and it looks so cool. Oh man, with the beard, and they really the Hulk makes me want to grow out my hair again. So there you go. Let us know in the comments if you have one. Clay, did you have one that you might want to reprint?
It's tough to say, but I mean, I'm just such a fan of that DC stuff.
Yeah.
I would love that's what I love about doing the show is to talk to people who maybe not have read of anything, and so have that stuff, that cream that rises to the top, and it's his Supergirl, his Young Justice is just the funnest book out there. Like
I
just
think
the
a nice
teen
big
kids, he gets it. He gets
Yeah.
the satire. He does great humor, and it like
And
Todd
that's-
Knock and him are perfect together.
He's really great at. You see this. This is tough because he's really great at writing kids, and not all writers are good at writing kids.
Very true.
at least kids that don't sound weird to adults. Like
right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they sound like kids, but they don't sound like weird kids. Like that's not what.
And I would
kids sound
imagine
like.
if you go back, because sometimes you'll go back and read these comics that were published in the 90s and they feel very dated, because they were trying to use. But I would imagine, I haven't read any of the I mean, I picked them up, but I haven't flipped through them yet. Those Young Justice books that they would still read pretty well today, I would think. Even though, again, they're kids and it's dated and stuff, but I just have such fond memories of that Young Justice run that I'm just like, and as you're a kid reading comics about kids being superheroes, like that's the perfect combination to get you into comics.
If Young Justice was launched today for the first time, Bart Allen, Impulse, would say Skibbity.
Yeah, he would totally say Skibbity
instead of Crash. I mean, but back then he just said Crash. Like, what's the difference? What's the difference between him saying Crash and him saying Skibbity? Like, it's the same dumb stuff, right?
It just like, Robin, you've got that Ohio Riz.
That's right. Exactly.
Get off my lawn, kids.
I did see a fun TikTok. Again, let me derail the show.
Please do.
Where it was like a professor of linguistics, and he goes into this class and he speaks to all the kids in that Gen Z language. And he's like, look, I could make fun of you. And he's doing this all in Gen Z. I can't do it. But he's like, I could make fun of this like every old person does. He goes, but this is a good way to prove why language is important, because now I can communicate with you. And, it's so learning language is so important to be able to put yourself outside your own self and into the world and understanding different cultures and stuff, and learning that language makes you a part of their culture. You're easily accessible to them because you now kind of have that common ground of understanding. And I was oh, that's such a beautiful message while saying Skibbity toilet, like it's such
there's then the camera whip pan to the audience, and it's like the scene from Space Odyssey with the monkeys discovering the
yeah tools for the first time. Yeah.
Cool. All right, anything else before we get out of here? Well, thank you guys for joining me on this last minute thing. I'm glad we were able to put it together. Like I mentioned, we'll have links for all that stuff I talked about, including ways to help, either directly or just through the Hero Initiative. In the comments, let us know your favorite Peter David comic books, your favorite stories, characters, anything that any way that Peter David might have influenced your life. Josh on our Discord shared a really nice story about a kid that would go to the comic shop all the time, and he would love to read Hulk. And one day Peter David came in, and then they ended up talking for like an hour. So like, you know, kind of like,
And he bought the kids' books.
yeah, and he bought the kids' books because he couldn't afford to get the next issue of Hulk. So if you have a cool story like that, leave it in our comments. And then once again, thank you for joining us on this special day stream. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day, whatever you may be doing. Hopefully your weather's better than here where we are, where it's pretty crappy. Luckily the weekend was nice.
Hey, it's cooler. I'll take the rain, man.
I'll take the cool. I'll take the cool for sure.
I'll take the rain, tamping down all the pollen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.